Hey everyone, I just wanted to do a series of videos on watch crystals and lay out some of the advantages and disadvantages of each type. I think there are some misconceptions and some misinformation out there, and I'm hoping maybe me tossing together some videos might clear things up for a few people. I'm going to start with the least expensive option out there, which would be the acrylic or plastic crystal. While not all acrylic crystals are created the same, I'm going to sort of lump them all together and just treat them as they were for the purposes of the video and not break them out into individual types and things like that. Acrylic is a form of plastic, and it's used in lower tier watches, and I think that's where one of the misconceptions gets started. People think that it's cheap, which is true, they are inexpensive, but an acrylic crystal has properties that can serve some pretty good purposes when it comes to being used on a watch. As an example, back in the day, NASA chose a watch with an acrylic crystal to go into space in some of their first missions. And the reason they did this was for the resilience and shatter resistance or shatter proofness of the acrylic crystal. You know, it has properties where it will not break into 1,000 bits. This watch, for instance, you could hit with a hammer. You would scratch the crystal. You'd probably do some damage to the crystal. You might even crack the crystal, but it wouldn't break into 1,000 little pieces. And this was important to NASA because they didn't want tiny little shards of glass floating around the spacecraft should one of the astronauts have damaged their watch with an impact of some sort. Using an acrylic crystal would ensure this wouldn't happen. You can't say the same about if they had chosen sapphire or mineral crystal for one of those watches. Another example would be the watch I have here, which is a Vostok Amphibian. The Amphibian uses a 3 millimeter thick crystal, which you can see there. It's very, very thick. If you're not familiar with the metric system, 3 millimeters would be taking three dimes stacked on top of each other. So it's a very thick crystal. And one of the reasons Vostok uses it is the design of the case. Vostok actually relies on the crystal deforming and sort of expanding outward to increase the tension or the seal between the crystal and the case. So as you dive, water pressure pushes the crystal down, causing the crystal to deflect and push against the sides of the case. So the deeper you go, the tighter the crystal gets. So essentially, the deeper, it gets tighter and tighter. So as you go down, the water resistance is actually increased. This is a key design element that Vostok relies on for these watches. And once again, it would simply not be possible using a different type of crystal material. It depends on the crystal deflecting. One of the major downsides of an acrylic crystal is the material is really quite soft, and it will scratch. The good thing about it is you can polish that scratch out using various products such as Polywatch. I'm sure there's others available. That's the one I'm familiar with. And what it is essentially is a mild abrasive. So if you have some minor scratches on an acrylic crystal, you can actually polish them out using that product. For deeper scratches, I've even had success using a high grit sandpaper where you actually sand the surface of the surface of the crystal and remove the deeper scratches, and then follow that up with Polywatch to take out the finer scratches left by the sandpaper. When you're done, you're pretty much left with a brand new crystal. You can almost can't even tell that anything had ever happened to it. Now, while it's true that acrylic crystals are inexpensive and used on lower end watches, the truth is they often do a job or fulfill a purpose that other crystal materials just can't. So it comes down to whether you're using the best tool for the job. Sometimes the best tool may be a sapphire crystal that is brittle but is extremely hard surface that will not scratch, and sometimes the better tool for the job is a softer material or a more flexible material, such as the acrylic crystal. So I wouldn't necessarily say they're worse than other types of crystal. I just think they are different and they can fulfill a purpose depending on what the watch is going to be used for and what the case or the watch is designed to do.